Thanks, guys. Okay, so back to the dependent clause of when you have seen your hate-filled policeman curse, kick, brutalize, and even kill your black brothers and sisters. Okay, so we've got 4 things. Are they on equal footing, or do they escalate or de-escalate? They escalate. So let's talk about it. So we've got curse, which is terrible. If you've ever had somebody really cuss you out, it hurts. It's an emotional thing. And these are the people who are supposed to be upholding the laws are cursing. Then we go to what? How is that an escalation? It's physical. Our next level up is brutalize. How is that an escalation? Do you know what it means to brutalize? It's targeted. A kick is a one-time thing. Brutalizing is over and over and over again until somebody is, not just bullied. This is a whole step up from bullying when somebody is brutalized. And it's physical. And then what can we say about even kill? It's the ultimate. There's no coming back from it. It is the ultimate form of violence. Okay. Tell me this about the sounds of curse, kick, kill. The K sound, is that a pleasant sound? It is not a melodious sound. It is a harsh sound. So the choice of his harsh actions have harsh sounds. And one of the things that King is really good at is making sure that what he said is reflected in his syntax and in his words. Okay, we're going to see more examples of that. The next dependent clause, when you see the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society. This dependent clause is really about what? Their finances. It's about the economy because he talks about poverty. But it's an airtight cage and they're smothering in it. Drowning and smothering. Oh, can't think of more terrible things. Those are things of nightmares. But they are smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society. What do we know about relative deprivation? Yeah? If it seems like everybody around you is rich and you're not, how do you feel? Really poor. If you're poor but everybody around you is poor, so what? No big deal. Okay? But they are in the midst of an affluent society. It seems like everybody around them is doing well, but they are not. And if it's just your race that's not doing well, oh, okay, we still have more. This one's going to be several lines long. When you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and see stars welling up in her eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to colored children, and see ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to distort her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people. All of that image is an image of what? A father talking to what? His daughter. How do we feel? What feeling is evoked in us when we read this? Pity. Pity for whom? The father and the child. It's tough on both sides, and your parents had to experience this at some point for you. This is a loss of innocence. See, when you're little, everybody in your world loves you. Your parents love you, maybe your siblings, maybe they just tolerate you, but still, there's love in that house. And your grandparents love you, and your pre-K teacher loves you, and your kindergarten teacher loves you. And then one day you realize there's somebody who not just doesn't love you, they don't even like you. And it's a little bit of a loss of innocence. It hurts when you realize somebody doesn't like you. This is a loss of innocence, where this child realizes that just because of the color of my skin, I'm not allowed to do something. And believe me, it hurts the parent, and it hurts that child too. I remember the day that my daughter got in the back seat and she just said, "Oh, so-and-so doesn't like me." And I was like, oh my gosh, poor baby. Everybody in her world to that point, I think she was a second grader, had loved her. And all of a sudden she encountered a friend that said something to her or whatever. And so that, targets all those clergymen who have had contact with all these human beings and maybe their own families, and they've experienced something like this. The next dependent clause is similar, but it's about a little boy. See how he keeps going back? He goes, father, mother, brother, sisters, little girl, little boy. When you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who's asking, Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean? Ugh. When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you. Have you fallen asleep in a car or a plane and you've done this? And you wake up, your neck killing you? Okay? You probably chose to take a nap, but you probably didn't sleep very well. But they're choosing to sleep in their form of transportation. Why? Because they don't have other choices. This isn't car camping. This is no one else will let us sleep in a bed. Cars were not meant for sleeping in. You're supposed to sit in them and go places and get places. And so, just reminding these clergymen of all of these images are things that these people are going through. Next one. When you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white, colored, and when your first name becomes, remember I'm not saying that word, your middle name becomes boy, however old you are, and your last name becomes John, and your wife and mother are never given the respected title Mrs. All of that is about what? Titles that are a sign of what? Social status. And you call me, you don't say, hey Ryan, you say Mrs. Ryan. They're a sign of respect. And all of this is about the disrespect they are receiving in their community. I never minded if a student said Miss. Okay, I like Mrs. Ryan, obviously that's my name, but when you are harried by day and haunted by night by the fact that you are a Negro, it's not something you did, it's just the color of your skin, living constantly at tiptoe stance, never quite knowing what to expect next, and are plagued with inner fears and outer resentments. Have you had a coach do something with you where you had to do a wall sit or you had to stay on your toes or whatever to build your muscles? And so he uses one of those physical things. When you're at tiptoe stance, and he says constantly, always feeling. So that's a couple of things. One, that is physically painful, but also when you're tiptoeing, what are you doing? Trying not to be seen. So you don't make anybody notice you, because if they notice you, then they might say something to you. So living at tiptoe stance, constantly is just like trying to be as quiet as possible. When you are forever fighting a degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. Talks about the fears, the resentments, and this feeling of nobodiness. Okay, I'm going to read it all again. And I'm going to run out of breath because I have to read a whole bunch of dependent clauses in a row. But I want you to try to figure out what the effect of such a long sentence is. Okay? But when you have seen vicious mobs lynch your brothers and fathers at will and drown your sisters and brothers at whim, when you have seen hate-filled policemen curse, kick, and even kill your black brothers and sisters, when you see the vast majority of your 20 million Negro brothers smothering in an airtight cage of poverty in the midst of an affluent society, when you suddenly find your tongue twisted and your speech stammering as you seek to explain to your 6-year-old daughter why she can't go to the public amusement park that has just been advertised on television, and see tears welling up in her eyes when she is told that Funtown is closed to colored children, and see ominous clouds of inferiority beginning to form in her little mental sky, and see her beginning to distort her personality by developing an unconscious bitterness toward white people. When you have to concoct an answer for a 5-year-old son who is asking, Daddy, why do white people treat colored people so mean? When you take a cross-country drive and find it necessary to sleep night after night in the uncomfortable corners of your automobile because no motel will accept you. When you are humiliated day in and day out by nagging signs reading white and colored. When your first name becomes, and your middle name Boy, however old you are, and your last name becomes John, and your wife and mother are never given the respected title Mrs., when you are harried by day and haunted by night, haunting words, by the fact that you are a Negro, living constantly at tiptoe stance, never quite knowing what to expect next, and are plagued with inner fears and outer resentments, when you go forever fighting a degenerating sense of nobodiness, then you will understand why we find it difficult to wait. What's the effect and what is he making us do?
Making us feel tired.
Making us feel tired. What?
Kind of giving an image of how they live.
And definite images of how they live while they're doing what? While they're waiting. And what does he make us do? He makes us wait. We, in this kind of a periodic sense, it doesn't make sense until the end. It actually creates a kind of a tension. This is not attention, tension. So if I say, when I heard the knock at the door, there's a little tension, like what's going to happen? Why is somebody knocking at the door? When you have to do this and this and this and this and this, finally then you will understand what it's like to wait. And in the process, he makes us wait. Is that brilliant or what? I mean, he makes us wait while he's talking about waiting. We see what their life is like while they're waiting. Very few authors do a superb job of having the syntax reflect what they're trying to demonstrate. And here is a beautiful example of his doing this. So, thank you, Martin Luther King Jr., for that beautiful example. Last sentence there. There comes a time when the cup of endurance runs over, and men are no longer willing to be plunged into the abyss of despair. I hope, sirs, you can understand our legitimate and unavoidable impatience. Cup of endurance is what? What's that an allusion to? What in the Bible? If you have a guess, I'm willing to hear it. I'll tell you if you're wrong, but I'll definitely praise you if you're right. My cup runneth over, from the 23rd Psalm. Okay? And so this, though, their cup isn't a cup of joy and gratefulness and peace. It says their cup's running over with what? Endurance, which is a word that's talking about time and waiting. We've had enough. That's why we're not willing to wait anymore. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. I am going to put out